This is the homework helper for Chapter 9, Section 8 in the 7th grade workbook, Pythagorean Theorem. So remember, we're talking about finding the missing side of a right triangle given the other two sides of said triangle. So let's go ahead and start and take a look at number 1 here. Now in number 1 here, they've given us the two legs of the triangle, the two sides that make the right angle. And as you remember from the formula, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, the legs are the a squared and the b squared part. So what they've given us here are a squared and b squared. And in what order you put those in totally doesn't matter. C is going to be this hypotenuse always, so we're finding C in this one. So let's dump some numbers into the formula. We've got 9 squared plus 12 squared, and that's going to equal C squared here. Well, we can simplify that because 9 squared changes into 81, and 12 squared changes into 144, and that's going to equal C squared. So I'm going to add those two guys together, and that's going to equal C squared. C squared is going to equal 225. Now, of course, the thing is that the hypotenuse is not what the hypotenuse squared is, which is what C squared would say. I just want to find the hypotenuse, regular old C. So in order to finish this here now, I have to take the square root. As you heard me say yesterday, squares and square roots are opposites of each other, just like addition and subtraction and multiplication and division. So taking the square root here is perfect because I'm finishing solving an equation, really. So of course I have to do something to both sides of the equal sign, and I want to do something that cancels things out. Do the opposite here. Well, the opposite of a square is a square root. So it's exactly what you would expect me to do with solving equations, just with a new operation. So when I take 225 and take the square root of it, or I can take it to the 1/2 power, whatever you want to do, the result here is 15. So the hypotenuse here must measure 15 inches long. Makes sense because remember the hypotenuse also has to be the longest side of the triangle. So if I would have gotten an answer anything less than 12, I would have known I would have done something wrong because it has to be the longest side. And you'll do similar things there in question 3 where you're finding the hypotenuse, and question 6 where you're finding the hypotenuse, and question 8 where you're finding the hypotenuse. Now the remaining questions are to give you the hypotenuse and you're finding one of the legs, which means the formula has to be worked a little bit of a different way. So let's try that with question number 5, which is an example of that. In question number 5, they've given us one of the legs. Remember, the legs are the sides that make the right triangle. One of the legs here was 12, and then they gave us the hypotenuse here, which was 13. So I'm trying to find this other leg. So you can call this other leg A, or you can call this other leg B. It's totally irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. Either way, you will come up with the proper solution. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and call that A. So we're going to say A squared, what I don't know, plus my other leg squared, 12 squared, has to equal my hypotenuse squared, 13 squared. Well, we can simplify that. That's going to be the same as A squared plus 144 equals 169. All right, well, now you're going to do this like you're solving an equation. Well, if you're doing this like you're solving an equation, you already know that the variable A is going to stay on the left, and we're going to send all the numbers over to the right. So I got to move 144. As far as moving 144 goes, do the opposite. Move it to the opposite side, do the opposite. So I'm subtracting 144 all the way across. That's going to give me A squared equals 25. And of course, just like we did in the last one though, I don't want the legs squared, I just want the legs, so you're going to have to take the square root all the way across. And when I take the square root of A, the result is 5. So the missing side there must measure 5 yards.